This audio file is about the 2003 murder case. In order to protect the privacy of individuals and victims, in the following article, all names have been altered except the murderer. The details about the story have been adapted to make it smoother, but I will try to tell things. Mr. Helen Otis, I called out to the boy who sat in front of me, but he didn't reply. He was wearing a light blue painted robe, his dark green circles under his eyes, his messy jet black hair, and his skin pale as paper. His gaze straight at me, like how a predator stares at its prey. I'm a psychiatrist. My job is to interview patients. He had been here for some time now, but I've never seen him communicate with other patients. He's always standing in the corner of the room. Needless to say, he was an eccentric child. This is a judicial psychiatric hospital. The only difference between this is the way we treat the patients with a criminal record, to prevent the patient from another infraction. His silence didn't help at all. Do you know this? I pulled out a picture in front of him. It showed a set of black-rimmed glasses on the road. This was the crime scene. He stared at the picture and spoke softly. This is from my best friend. Can you tell me something about it? I asked, but he just stared at me without saying a single word. Look, since you came here, we have not been making any progress. If you can tell me something about this, then just tell me about it. Please. After I finished my plea, he heaved a sigh and said, It's a rather long story. His story is about a very quiet teen in his class who was accused of stealing a watch which belonged to a very popular classmate. This caused him to be bullied by a group of students. He and one of those students named Tom became friends, but later found that his friend had framed him. They argued at the rooftop and Tom accidentally fell to his death. This is the photo of Tom's glasses after the incident occurred. I tried to save him. I tried to pull him up, but he let go of my hand. I didn't know what I was thinking at the time. He finished his story, then looked down at his hands. He seemed to be thinking about something. Recalling seemed to give him anxiety. I predicted this before he had said anything. The patients who were sent here as well as their cases were recorded on their files. Intriguing cases from high schoolers are very common for teens like Otis. Bygone memories of the past fade, but not in this case of Tom's death. Maybe that's why Helen couldn't forget the past or forgive himself. What happened after that? I continued my questions. At least we're making some progress. After Tom died, Halloween just was around the corner. The school had a Halloween party, and everyone had to dress up. I prepared a mask one night before the event. I was so tired, so I napped. And then I found myself here. In the file, it stated that he killed 17 people that night. No one knew why he had done it. It didn't rule out the fact more than one person was involved. Do you remember what happened during the party? Any details, I asked, but he shook his head and then continued to look down at his fingers. Doctor, why am I here? He asked quietly. Because you are ill, I answered. He rose his head in response. Come on, you're only 14 years old. Your future is still very bright. I gave him a pat and a smile, hoping to cheer him up. I want to let him know that I'm his friend, not his enemy. This was what I said to the boy. This was the first time he'd ever spoke more than a word. Well, at least he was talking now. We made very good progress here. The atmosphere always suffocated me. Maybe because this was a hospital. Not the best place for a sane person to stay for long. I get surrounded by different patients every day. I'd grown accustomed to it until now. I felt something unfamiliar. I feel like I'm a frail sheep amongst a pack of hungry wolves. I'm pretty sure this place is slowly eating my sanity a little by little. Something in Helen Otis's file stuck with me. I decided to ask him in person in the next upcoming interview. We met in a small room this previous time. I greeted him with a smile and he responded with a few blinks. I took that as a greeting from him. As I sat down at my place, I flipped open my nose on his case, looked him in the eyes. I questioned the femininity of his name. Helen, do your parents name you this? He thought for a minute, then told me that his parents had difficulty conceiving a child, and they were eager to have a daughter, but instead gave birth to a boy. Due to their mother's weak health and their financial situation, they couldn't have any other children as much as they hoped so. They decided to raise their only son as a daughter. As he finished his sentence, he fell silent. As I was thinking what kind of response I should have, he opened his mouth again. Not only does his name sound feminine, his parents also brought girl clothes for him when he was younger, raised him like a daughter instead of a son. Neighbors and children around the area did not know that he was actually a boy. When he reached the age of 6, he had to go to school. Afraid that the way he was raised would cause huge concern, his parents tried to change their ways, treating him like a son. Maybe this is why he had some feminine characteristics. My parents are very fond of me. and I understand their difficulties, so I've not complained about them. I do not think they have any problems. His family is very dysfunctional. He grew up under his parents' twisted faith and over-high expectations, which affected his growth. He lost some basic human traits, but he didn't notice. Plus, he didn't seem to know how to express his feelings due to the environment he grew in. It's hard to change the patient's opinions on their family's faith. I wanted to tell him that his parents were doing wrong, but this wasn't the right time, so I kept my mouth shut. Although he rarely talks to other people in the hospital, he talks politely whenever he does. He chats sometimes. We sat on the white bench in the park. We looked like best friends. We don't always talk about things related to hospital. We talk nonsense sometimes, and it was these moments that both felt relaxed, especially me. I really felt the tension between us loosen. In this moment, patients will randomly pick fights with one another. He won't pick fights, but neither does he stop them. He always manages to avoid any form of chaos and live peacefully. That's pretty smart of him. In the year 2001, October 3rd, he was discharged from the hospital after receiving treatment for 7 years, and it's time for him to return back to society. He was now 21 years old. He's no longer the young boy I remember. I was the one seeing him off, thinking about how happy I felt for him. Don't you ever come back here, Helen. If you think I'm coming back here again, we will only meet when you are sitting in the electric chair. Those were the last words I said to him as I pat his shoulder and smiled. He nodded in response. He had a good nature, if you asked me. I remember the look of him when he left. He wore a dark blue windbreaker and a pair of black pants. His hair was still the same messy jet black. Won't he try to comb his hair a little? I truly hoped that he wouldn't be seeing him in this place again. After his discharge from the hospital, he was behaving well. We sometimes talk by email or meet up at a cafe. We talked about what we're doing now. He works at a mover and a cleaner as a part-time job. His body was quite muscular, looked much healthier than when I first saw him. He saved a small amount of cash and rented a small old house. The environment is quiet and nice. He had brought some art tools and started to draw. He told me he wanted to become a painter. He still doesn't talk much, but I'm happy that he found his goal in life. He said he never blamed his parents for what he had done to him, but he never once visited his parents after he was discharged. After we confirmed that he wasn't a threat to society anymore, we finished our observation of him. In 2003 of October, there were a few missing people's cases. Judy George and Maggie Wang, both aged 24, were a few of the victims who were missing. These cases were very popular at the time, but I didn't really care. A user posted this photo on social network. He set his CCTV in this picture on October 31st of 2003 at 2:30 a.m. and stated that someone tried to break in my neighbor's house. The police have no clue who is responsible for these cases. They thought it was some guilty pleasure freak behind them. No, there was no specific motive. It just seemed like they were all done for some sick satisfaction, making them harder to track down. Until the police found out the victims were all the same class with Helen Otis before he entered the hospital, as well as the survivors from the gruesome case from a few years ago. The police decided to investigate his home. When I saw the news, I felt my heart skip a beat. I tried to contact him as well, but to no avail. Something bad was going to happen. I sat in front of my TV, my mind jammed like glue. I can't think of anything or do anything. God, no. Please, no, echoed in my head. On the 17th of November, the night was dead quiet. That place was silent, which made his house in the middle of the fields look more eerie. The police broke the lock of the door and opened it slowly. A rotten stench greeted the intruders from the darkness of the house. One of the policemen shone a torch through the home. Surprisingly, there wasn't a piece of furniture in the entire structure. Apparently, no one had lived in the house for quite some time. They moved inside quietly to check the source of the smell. Suddenly, one of the policemen felt something brush against his shoulder. When he pointed his torch up, he saw something that scared his mind. An upside-down human with a twisted face was eyeing the police officer. The corpse's neck had been ripped right open. The policeman freaked out and called out to the others as he scanned the rest of the house with his torch. The house was full of such corpses, like a butcher's shop. Every single body's flesh was drawn canvas. The writing on top of it was the process of a victim in the killings. One of the body's jaws had gotten ripped away brutally. All the paint on the canvas was brown. This was proven later to be the victim's blood after analyzing, turning brown because of the oxidation. There was a total of 5 bodies in the house, including Judy and Maggie. The other 3 were the ones who gave witnesses about the murder case involving Helen to the police officers a few years ago. This home seemed to be more like a gruesome art gallery of the victims than a butcher's. All of the bodies of the canvases were facing the entrance, as if were greeting the ones who entered the place. The police couldn't figure out the intention of the murder other than him making a cruel joke. I fell into despair. I never felt like before. I really hope this was not who I think had done this. After the news was published, neither can I eat nor sleep normally. My health was sliding downhill, my sanity escaping. Can anything be worse than this? I really wanted to get back in time and punch myself. The next day after the news was released, I received a call from the police that they had asked me about the murder. They received Helen Otis's patient file from me. I told them everything I knew about him. The police took note that I was not well. I told them that I was terribly shaken by the discovery of Helen Otis. I told them that Helen is a really good person. He was just walking down the wrong path. I thought I had stopped him from going astray. The police found a letter at the crime scene. They asked me to stay calm. The letter was written for me. I asked to receive the copy of the letter from the police. They complied, and then they left. I stared at the letter, thinking of whether to read it or not. I was on the verge of breakdown, but I felt something in the letter could savage me. As I sat back in my couch, I didn't know how long I was staring at the letter in my hands. Then I slowly opened it and began to read. Dear Doctor, I finally remembered what happened at night after I looked at my mask. That night, 7 years ago, the day before Halloween, I kept fidgeting on my bed, unable to sleep. All the things that happened to me stung my mind like a needle. That time I thought to myself, I had to do something about it. Then it happened. I threw a turd on my hairdryer into the public bathtub. There were a lot of people present. I remember I used a simple fork to dig someone's eye out. I remembered I ripped someone's head from their neck. I attacked everyone who lived in the student dorm. I can't fully remember all the details. I just did what my mind told me to do. When no one was screaming or struggling anymore, peace fell upon me. A peaceful feeling I never felt before. I fell to my well-deserved slumber on a pile of dead bodies. When I opened my eyes again, I saw you, Doc. You said the reason why I was here was because I was sick. Well, I must be pretty ill for now, but I never felt so peaceful in my life. Maybe I am better off to be sick like this. You told me the next time we meet is going to be in the electric chair. What if it was the other way around? You must know that I have got my own way to meet you in person. See you soon. When I finished his letter, my mind went completely blank. What the hell was he trying to say? His last words sent a chill down my spine. I felt like a prey to him. I became one of his targets to hunt down. Wait, no. Maybe when he was still in the hospital, I was always prey to him. Maybe he longed for this day to come. God knows what's going on in his head. He never showed his emotion, even though I'm his doctor. I could never truly understand what kind of person he was, even though I thought I was his friend. Hell, I even said he was my own child. Everything we went through was just a lie? Why am I so fucking dumb that I forgot the rules of the hospital? They won't send any sane person to a fucking place. The police won't be on patrol at this time. My life is just like an unstable time bomb. Until the day he gets arrested, I will never know what he will do. My chances of getting killed by him will stay the same. I don't know what the worst case scenario will happen to me, so I wrote it down. At least I won't die without letting others know what will happen and what I think. I live alone. That's bad. I began to be paranoid about my environment. Even little things made me jump. Before any of this happened, he used to be the most harmless patient I'd ever met, but now he can kill me at any second he wanted to. I'm like helpless prey. This is what I get for ignoring the fact that he's a criminal and tried to save himself. This is not a lost teen who walked down the wrong path in his life. He's actually a real-life criminal. And here I am, staring at what he was capable of. Maybe his stable behavior was nothing but an act. That moment that I felt happy for his recovery was only for me. I don't know how to face him anymore. I don't know what was going to happen next. I would truly hope everything will be okay. I just heard my house's door open. This article was written in Dr. Elmer Christopher's notebook in the drawer. There were some old newspaper articles attached to it. He already moved out of his house when the new house owner had found the post and posted it online. Additional information has developed. The above amended drawing of the murder suspect, known as the Bloody Painter, 25 to 35 years, approximately 5'10", short black hair, blue eyes, and the information from Inspector Abraham and Todd.